Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Urban is here. Simon,
Here.
Tefreshi,
Here.
Gray,
I'm present.
Wicker.
Here.
Oh, Benzinger, I skipped you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm here.
And how do you say Joe's last name?
Latte.
Latte. Okay. Easy.
Latte. Just like coffee. Yeah.
Expect the coffee. Okay, has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
Pretty light.
Yeah.
Approval?
Make a motion to approve the minute,
I second.
or it should be the agenda.
I second.
Hey, all those in favor? How about the minutes? Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minute.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Chairperson has no report. So we'll move on to the village manager.
Yeah, you can count this as manager and council. I'll just cover everything at once.
Okay, super.
Move right along. Permit activity is starting to pick up a little bit. We've had, a garage come in that we're waiting to do the lot combination on it. But that'll be approved. We've had one house so far this year. I know we've got another two that are in the process. It definitely is slower than the last few years, but it is picking up somewhat now this time of year. Other than that, on my end, what else we got talking about? The council authorized me to sign a contract for fireworks. So if, we put it right up on our website. Get over there. Why is it not doing that way?
This is a new company, right?
It's a new company, so. This February, Art Barr passed away. Art and his wife Robin were the co-owners of Freedom Fireworks, who've done our show since at least 2013. We thought that was probably gonna be the end of fireworks, mainly because, you know, it's, by that time, it's March, trying to lock in a crew for 4th of July. And we reached out to a few different firms and had two that said they could provide a crew. One did, the casinos.
Oh.
And the other one is who, we're gonna go with this year, which is Small Town Saturday Night Fireworks. Are out of Sheridan. Came up, we showed them, you know, the concerns that we had concerning the new development along Fairway Drive, and you know, this is probably gonna limit us to 6-inch size shells, which is, you know, we've done bigger in the past. You know, but we have to,
Still not that bad.
it's not that bad.
At least we have them.
We're gonna have them,
Yeah. Thrilled.
The show is gonna be a little bit different than in past years in that, they want to incorporate more of the cakes as part of the show. So those are the ones, if you look on the screen there, like, they're gonna be more the bottom half firework.
Right.
And they're gonna have aerials above them, so kind of like this more.
Okay.
So I think in total, the show that they put together is about 1,900 shells, with 1,200 being from cakes and another 700 being the aerials.
They could do smaller.
A lot of threes, and the threes are what you see on those pictures there on the left too, those are threes. You know, the 6 is the taller one on the right, but. So that's exciting. We're gonna start fundraising here in the near future. Another factor that was, are we gonna be able to do it is. I'm sure you heard the sheriff's department doesn't really have a lot of operations these days.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a boat on the lake, we can't safely do the show. And, so the sheriff, said, yeah, they're gonna be able to do lake patrol, so we're gonna have, a contract with them approved here in the near future. We scaled down the number of dates. Typically, we've done 5. We're gonna do 3 this year. you know,
3 besides July 4th.
three,
July 5th.
yeah, we're gonna do Memorial, well, 3 including the 4th, so Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day weekend.
Okay,
Those are what we're
Big
gonna
ones.
pay to have them out here.
yeah, I agree, so, but,
Other than that, they come out whenever, because I think they are getting the DNR grant or applying for it again to do it,
Okay.
so. The village is in conversation with the city of Mount Pleasant about policing. We've had some back and forth on how it would be structured and, you know, what happens in this scenario and how are we gonna handle overtime and tickets and all that kind of stuff. Productive, good conversations, no red flags on either side jumping out that, you know, this looks like something that we couldn't do. So a little bit ways away yet on getting that done, but good discussions there. The Lake Restoration Committee authorized or approved a bid from Savin Lake Services to do the next project in the lake restoration, which is the river channel. That will
300 some thousand.
384,000. And I have it there. Okay. 384,000. They're gonna start sometime in June, because they gotta construct a holding cell. Because this one is being done with suction dredging as opposed to mechanical dredging. Yeah. For some reason my computer is super sensitive about trying to get to that page.
What's top secret?
I know what it is. There we go. Because there was something below it every time I went down to it, but. They were literally the only bid that we had for the project.
That does the hydrology.
Yeah, and we had a second hydraulic dredge bid when we did Birch, but it was 700,000, you know. The low bid was 200,000.
Yep.
Savin's was 250 on that project. It's like they're not serious, you know. They do have to be done by October 15th for the permit from the state of Michigan, so that's one thing.
the piping that they're gonna be moving all the sand upriver, is that gonna be, the piping itself gonna be in the river too, or is that going along the shoreline?
Floated on the river in barrels is what their
So
proposal
it's
says.
gonna float and still send all that sand and silk and stuff up there, so wow, it'll be fun to watch, I guess.
Yeah.
How many yards do they anticipate for this permit up there? You know, remember?
It was 11,852
Okay.
for the,
It's bigger than what they did for Birch Cove.
bigger than we did for Birch,
Birch was like
correct?
9,000, I think. so
Yep.
They took all that.
Yeah.
Where are they putting this?
Lucky Robinson's property off of Rowland Road.
He's taking all of this so far?
Yeah, well, Lucky's doing a gravel pit up
Yeah,
there.
I get that.
So he wants us put next to it, so when they're done, they can use it, I believe, for reclamation of the gravel pit. Other things going on. The ones that jump out at me. Minutes are in your packet, obviously.
What's
17,
this nice book we have? Is this,
that's the target market. Oh,
okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
the council did postpone action regarding chickens and bees.
Waiting on Lansing.
Yeah, so there's a bill in the Michigan House, that would preempt all local control over backyard chickens. And so they said, there's no point in us doing something right now, having people start to get coops and that kind of stuff, if they're gonna be completely preempted by the state, because the state put up like a September timeframe on their bill if it's gonna get adopted or not. The council did also authorize me to begin talks with Kings on a multi-year renewal of their franchise agreement. And they also adopted a resolution and rescinded a few no parking zones around the lake.
Oh, sticker prices went up on the trash.
Two up still.
Oh, I thought, oh, and it was $1.50, maybe I haven't bought it in a while, so.
It was $1.50 originally, the
Right.
last 2-year renewal that would have been January 1st, 2024, they went up to $2.
Oh, well, I
But it's been a while.
had a bunch that I finally used up. I had to go buy. I'm like, two.
Yep.
I'm not complaining. It just surprised me.
And that is. That's all I got for you guys.
Well, thank you. We have no public hearings and I don't think we have anyone online.
No,
Okay. So I think we can skip right past and go directly to new business. Just this lovely book in front of us. Coincides with the gal who gave us the presentation. Most of us were on there, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. I thought we were.
Yeah, but if you weren't, you got a link sent to you the day after to watch it
Yeah.
at your leisure.
We had a nice conversation after that meeting too, for the people who were here, that we can catch you up on as well.
Crazy point in my mind. I don't know who would want to sit and analyze the information the way she does. I'm like. That's
Yes.
great.
Made up all the categories, you know, that you see
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, that
And
is,
then you look and go, what that, you know, I looked down and riveted, what is that in the story?
Yeah.
And
Did you hear it?
yeah, I was online. I thought,
Yeah, I was,
it's like, man, that's boring. Sorry.
Riveted.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Not nearly as
It
exciting as
was.
my job.
Interesting reading. I mean, it took a while to get through all of that, try to digest it, but it did come out with a lot of different information that was more precise than I thought it would have been.
Yeah,
I was
it's
surprised
crazy.
on how much data they're able to collect in detail, based on what she was talking about in that meeting.
Right.
Oh, it's like, holy smoke, you know.
Well, because remember I asked the question where some of it came from, it comes from the credit bureau.
Yeah.
So they are analyzing what you buy and what
Oh,
you
yeah,
do.
yeah, oh, yeah.
And they're selling all this data,
Mhm.
so you can't really do anything without somebody knowing what you're up to.
Yeah.
American Express used
There's
to
no
have,
privacy.
American Express used to have a year-end report when they had my American Express card. And they would literally break down all of my billing by categories like that, groceries, gas, with this, that, and everything. It's like, oh, it was cool to look at, and then I'm thinking the same thing. Wow,
Yeah.
they're really paying attention to what I was
Even the
spending
bank app.
my money on, so.
Even
and-
the bank app does it now. on
Yeah,
Online
yeah.
banking.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and then they get this miscellaneous thing. I'm like, geez, what are we spending miscellaneous? It adds up fast.
Yes,
You
it
don't
does.
realize when you're swiping
Mhm,
what's happening.
Yep.
So it's very neat. This is a lot of information.
It's a lot of information. I think it's interesting too, if you look at the difference in the data from 2016. So in 2016, the same outfit did this for the county and they produced a smaller data set for us because we were, you know, it went Mount Pleasant, you know, Shepherd, Union Township, like as well. So, you know, the smaller people had a smaller data set and, you know, we took that information as kind of the foundation for what we did in the master plan. And looking at the 2024 data, you know, like the number one lifestyle cluster for us now is sport utility families. You know, that, you know, had a pretty significant jump over the last 8 years where, you know, the demographic groups that would represent, you know, the empty nester stage of life and above
Yes.
has shrunk
mhm.
and the family ones have grown.
Yep.
Um,
Which is kind of nice. That was
Yeah.
overall kind of a goal out here is to bring some younger people in and.
But it has changed attitude a lot about what people want in our village versus 30 years ago when I moved here, you know.
They want to quiet and
Yeah,
no
yeah.
toys and
Yeah.
no.
I
butts
was,
on the
I was a
wall.
minority, being very young compared to what it was, and now it's, what's the average age, down to like 48 or something like that, 47?
but yeah, it's.
It was going way down compared to what it used to be, so.
Well, even back in 2013, when we moved here, I think the average age was like 65 or something.
Was it?
Yeah,
I hope-
yeah.
Mhm.
Because I checked, you know, I was like, oh, a lot of old parts. You know,
I thought it was the latest census or wherever I saw it. Average, I thought.
I represent that remark. I resembled that remark too.
Damn old people.
Yeah.
Let's see,
I mean, just the number of people using the lake alone. When I moved here in '96, I live on Birch Cove. There were 3 of us that had boats. Docks and
Wow.
boats for the entire cove.
Wow.
Now. There's gotta be 70, at least 70
Yeah.
docks in there now, and they're fighting over those dock spaces every year now. It's how much it's changed in 30 years.
so I don't have the 2020 census numbers in front of me, but I can tell you in 2000, our median age was 40-ish, and then in 2010, it was 37.2.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so we were starting, we had more people under 18 than over 65 as of 2010, and I know the data
Wow.
still supports that.
Mhm.
Yeah, the census data is in one part. I really haven't messed around with a whole lot yet in the update for our master plan, but mainly because the 2020 census data was so terrible.
So this is globally, in the whole United States, but I just saw an article that said the average age of a homeowner is 53.
Yeah.
So that, and that's, states, not just Michigan, but that kind of,
Up or down from.
That's way up.
it's way up.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
and I think
That's
it's
what I figured,
due to
but-
finances and the
Yep.
cost of
Yes,
taxes and
exactly, yeah.
homeowners insurance and the interest rates.
Yep.
But interest rates have always fluctuated, and in fact, where interest rates are today is still much lower than a lot of our ancestors
Oh,
would
yeah.
tell us.
Yeah.
It's just that the cost of things is so
Yep.
much more.
My first house in 1990, 10% interest. And that
Yeah,
that was a
and
good
then
rate.
now-
I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that now, so,
Right, but
No.
if you said what you paid for it, it's probably
yeah.
way, way less than what somebody has to pay.
Yeah,
today, so,
probably. I think I paid like 52,000 or something like that for it, so.
Yeah, it's
but-
very hard to compare what that does with compounding interest over
Right.
30 years.
Right.
My first one was 6,000. I thought I broke the bank. It was on a lake. And I go, wow,
Wow.
I can stay here forever when I have to.
Yeah.
Back then with the average wage,
Yeah.
look at the age, at that point. So in 76, when we got it, it was 10%.
Mhm.
At that time, when I bought a house, my first car was a Mustang. I got 65, cost me $2,600.
Oh, nice, fancy.
Yeah, the cost,
Out the door brand new, $2,600.
But wages were what at that time too, so,
Oh, minimum wage was something like, about 75,
yeah, but when I got in, it was
you know?
250 or 225 was minimum wage when I got my first job, so. But, yeah, I didn't buy.
We're all trying to show
say so.
Yeah, I'm just listening, you guys are a bunch of old.
I was happy with my $500 Chevy
One
note.
of the ones in the scenario that acted old.
well, so,
Yeah.
I've been at Monticello for 25 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
I worked in summer and they paid for my school all
You
year.
did?
Yep.
So would you turn 45?
50.
50. Big 5-0.
well, I only said that about the home age though, because when we're considering the things that we do and trying to get the younger folks into home ownership, it's a difficult thing right now because of the costs of
Yeah, well,
everything.
All the.
Getting a down payment and coming up with, I mean, the whole thing, if you don't have it, the size of mortgage.
Yeah.
What is it, maybe close to $7 a thousand payment, something like that now?
Yeah, and you can see, I don't know what page this is in here, but you can see the home value tolerance and right where the majority of people bought started at 350.
Yeah.
350 to 425, and that does not surprise me at all for the home, but a lot of people cannot buy a house of that magnitude.
That was
And
it.
Give it a few years, it'll be like automobiles, they just raise they'll raise the loan. Term.
Oh, gosh,
Well, 50
From,
year
you know,
loans
to
now.
be able to afford $100,000
Mhm.
vehicle, now you can do what is it now, is it still 7 or?
I
you
think
can
it's
go
still
up?
7, at
Oh, no,
least
you
in
can go
my
8,
opinion.
But,
you can go 8.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Really?
say,
You can go 8.
you wait, the 30 year will become 40 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I,
Oh, hope not.
you know, but what else can a person do when, you know, like a Jeep Wagoneer is $90,000?
You know, like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's why used cars are just so incredibly high. Well, people aren't carrying them because you can't afford a new one. You can't get a new car, it's at our house, one or the other.
Yeah, that.
Either live in your truck
Mhm.
or live in a home.
Right.
I know a lot more people that are leasing. Even
Yeah.
retired people are all
But
leasing.
they'll have a
now.
payment for the rest of their life.
So part of our,
That'll only go so long until they have a bigger influx,
and that, but after that last meeting was done, the 911, part of our conversation that we had, and these guys were here too, was that I had suggested that some of what we might want to start focusing on is the extremes, the really small houses, like even smaller than a mobile home kind of stuff, the single, less than 1,000 square feet kind of house for that, maybe the test area over in the mobile home area, that kind of stuff too. And also the other extreme for the number of people who want to retire around here, but don't want to stay in their 4,000, 5,000 square foot houses. Is to have some kind of retirement area, neighborhood, something like that, where those houses that would be built would be specifically built for retired older people, you know, lower counters, you know, wider hallways for wheelchairs, you know, that kind of stuff like that too, are two places that I would like to try to focus on.
Well, I think she
Here in the
talks
village.
about some of that in here, like around the golf course.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then duplexes, I think was the other thing she was talking
Mhm.
about.
That's really for the people that want a downside. They
Yeah,
mentioned either lake view or golf course view.
Right.
It's one of those.
and they had to have a private entrance, like.
Right.
You're not seeing your neighbor's entrance, you got your own porch or whatever. Like, you know, I really appreciate that aspect because. You know, in the planning world, you hear so much, you know, the missing middle and quadplexes, it's like. That's not going to work
No.
here,
No,
Like-
yeah.
you know, and for her to come in and say, no, that absolutely is not gonna work here,
Mhm.
you know.
I still think there's a market too, out in the other areas for younger people. Because you can get on the lake, you can get a dock on the lake, you can get all sorts of stuff on the lake and you're not living right on the lake. So the prices that you know aren't as high
Mhm.
and the taxes aren't as high, so it can combine the both.
That's why I stopped in the other day because I was calling some modular home companies,
Mhm.
trying to see if I could set up a time to meet with them. For my own information. I wanted to see what an average price per square foot would be. Because then when you add the foundation, the well, so that's all on top of this.
Mhm.
All right, so I was trying to come up with what is the true cost of maybe 1,000 square foot for the starter homes?
Mhm.
What would be 1,000 square foot modular home cost? Now, there's one, obviously Clark has
Yeah.
that here, Freedom, which is farther towards Midland, you see them on 20. The next one is in Grand Blanc
They have one in Canada.
and one in Cadillac.
Right.
That I was trying to come up and see what kind of buildings do they have that would meet this need? All right, or even for some of the ones that maybe that they want to scale down to. If you
Yeah.
put a nice size of
Same,
1,500 square foot, which is all that somebody would want,
Mhm.
and maybe a sun porch or something like that. That could be for the golf course or whatever, so they could, they're inside, they still have the view, but they still see a little bit of privacy. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so I was trying to get to them and call them, because the last guy I talked to conventionally build a home. I mean, you're in the 260s
Mhm.
as far as a square foot.
Yeah.
So you build a 1,400 square foot home. And you add a lot, even though the lot costs you $20,000. I mean, unless these guys sell their $400,000, $500,000 home. Like it is, what is the average income in this area that can afford that?
That's anywhere though, really. I mean,
It's everywhere.
it's everywhere.
So it reminds me of like Sunset Shores. Does everybody know what Sunset Shores at Canadian Lakes was?
I haven't been there.
Yes,
I know Canadian Lakes, but.
in Canadian Lakes, they had this little area that it was manufactured, but little manufactured homes.
Okay,
And they were, just an elderly area. I don't remember if there were 6 or 8 of them, and they were all kind of like, that, it didn't look like a modular home or mobile home park, but
Okay.
real similar, this little area.
Mhm.
And so the way they did it, I think they almost made them like condos, because I don't believe these people owned the land, they just owned the home when they purchased it, similar to a condo.
Okay,
So the exterior maintenance, their lawn was mowed for them, the
It's still like a site.
snow was plowed. Yeah, things were,
It's like a site condo, because it'll take you 9-10 months to go through the procedures to get a regular subdivision approved
Mhm.
in Michigan.
Mhm.
And a site condo, you don't deal with state, you still stay locally.
right, but they're all the same, they made them all the same, with the lower counters.
But
the
that way you
different
still have common ownership, you have common privacy for your unit,
things.
but you can get to, and they'll have an association that may get together, have dues for lawn maintenance.
But it's the same guy, gal that comes in, mows the lawn on the same day, so it's all neat and trim,
So
all at the same time. So it's, I mean, it's
There's
a very
really
nice
no place-
concept.
large enough that I think of, I could remember within the village limits that you could put a development like that together.
Yeah.
To
Mhm.
put 15 or 20 homes together. And normally they'd like to have a little clubhouse, for lack of a better way to say it, where
Gathering place.
gathering place.
Yep.
They would go. All places I've looked around and driven around are not within the village limits, so it doesn't really help us here. So they won't have really access to anything here.
I think we did a site condo out where I'm at, but it's houses and you got to do your own mowing, it's just. It was easier to get it approved quickly, I guess, when they
But
started.
it's your
developing
choice,
it.
whether you want to set up an association or not.
Yeah,
You can do your own thing.
we have a common septic system as well, so.
I think in a site condo, don't you have to have an association?
Yeah, we do, it's up on top of the hill.
On a plat, you don't have to, but a site condo, I'm pretty sure you have to.
But it's just whatever,
Yeah.
whatever amenities, services you want to establish. All
Right,
right,
some,
and snow
in Mount
plowing,
Pleasant,
things of
there's,
that nature, yes.
they have them, but they don't have dues.
Green
Some of
vines.
them have the association set up, but there are no dues because there's nothing happening with that.
But it's
I learned
just
that once in a while.
maybe north of this, there's the only place I could think of. The farther north, like Isabel was about the only place that you could probably put some type of that development together.
You have the pellet plant property here, which is what, 31 acres or, I'm looking at 28 acres? Something like that with that big 5-acre pond in the middle of it, and I always thought that would be a good place to have a senior retirement. And build the houses around that pond,
And
you
we
know,
own,
with
Is that-
road coming in.
is that what
No,
the limits?
it's a private property.
Oh, I
But
didn't,
that
I,
property is for sale.
I checked on the wrong map, I guess, you know, I wasn't aware of that.
So that is one place that I think we can do what you said, you know, a bigger 6, 8, 10 houses
So you
around that pond. It's not on the golf course, it's not on the lake,
So you
but
could build a road and you could
yeah.
build it with expansion, you don't have to build a site for 30 homes at once. You can build it as, and extend it as needed to go through it, and I think that alone, I mean, for a lot of people that want to scale down, if they've got the money, they can walk in and pay for this. If you give them an option of 4 or 5 different models, they want more stick built, they want stick built.
A lot of the people I talk to that want to stay here and retire don't want to buy the house, though. They just want to rent it month to month. Knowing that, well, there's a couple that's in there, one passed away and one goes into a place that, you know, has to take care of them, whatever, they want to be able to just walk away from it 30 days later. They don't want to have to worry about selling the house and putting it in the market and doing all that kind
But
of
if
stuff.
you could sit down and figure out, like a builder would have to do, what is it gonna take to develop this lot for this big a home?
Yes.
So what am I gonna have into it?
Mhm.
Therefore, I can figure out what kind of rent I'm gonna
Exactly,
do.
yeah.
All right?
That's why-
That's why I was calling all these places,
Yep.
because I've lost track of what the cost. For those homes on.
One of my ideas was, because of the cost of housing, and I've been looking at modular homes, exactly what you said, is that it tends to be a little bit cheaper for the actual owner if we would like duplexes. Because to build a duplex is still not, it's still about the same expense of building a regular house, but now you've got 2 sources of rent coming in. So it's a little bit more economically feasible for somebody to be able to do that. Again, focusing on retired seniors, so you build those that only seniors can live in this area. Only,
That's
you
correct.
know, you have it set up so that it's more beneficial indoors for the seniors, for the older adults to get around and. Like I said, lower counters, lower cabinets, all that, that stuff that go with it. To me, I thought it would be at the pellet plant area, would be a great place if we could find a developer.
Would that be something that the committee would look at it to get with a group, a couple individuals, so it's not really up to. And you don't have to necessarily believe what I have to say, and what I found out, maybe I screwed up and missed something. But maybe a couple people just to make contact with a variety of these, and we can get together and meet and see what that would take. Is then we could get that, I don't know who does the roads, but to bring in gas, to bring in like internet, electricity.
You definitely wanna think it over though, cause I mean, the more I think about it, it sounds like a good idea, but it also sounds like a trailer park 20 years from now. That's what it does to me. And then how do you get rid of it? Kind of like Queensway. There are portions on the other side of Queensway. Once you let that in, I mean, that's been in forever, right? But to try to get rid of it,
That's where I was going with some of these other types of houses other than the mobile homes, so and.
yeah, but if you go
Mobile
cheap,
homes. No, I wasn't trying to go cheap either. I wasn't just, you're right. I'm not saying it's a $10,000 house. It's still, $150,000 house, but something more affordable
That's why I
for.
wanted to go
a
with
single
modular
person.
standard housing codes instead of double wides, which are manufactured homes.
Yep.
Housing codes, and I wanted something there that you could go and say, I would like at least 3 or 4 different options. To come in and say, what would the prices be for this? And is there enough demand locally that once you have this data, how much it would cost potentially? Is there any, we could send out a flyer or somehow say, is there enough demand here to start that?
you're talking about have some contractor come in and do all this, right?
Well,
We're not talking about us trying to do that, are you?
not
The only thing-
necessarily. I'm not asking us to take it out, no,
No.
but I'd like to have some information. And to say,
It's like getting bids from contractors.
in other words, yeah,
We have
is
to
this
get
a
one of them
viable project?
interested in it though.
Is
first.
this viable? I mean, it's a
But if you
nice
could-
idea, but if we find out the cost is here
We
and
don't-
we don't have anybody in it, we just, no, and the answer is obviously no.
But even if we found a developer who was.
you'd have to find, you'd have to find a developer.
We, the
Wanna put up a
planning
bunch of
commission and the
specs.
council,
Right.
still have to work with that developer to bring the roads in, to bring the electricity in, to bring the water.
We're not putting it-
Unless you did it like what where he's kind of got it, where the road's already there, right?
Mhm.
Where's that?
That's north.
Oh,
True.
place like I was talking about, but wasn't, not for sale.
Right.
Where was your at, Tim?
Crew's right here.
There's a,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and then
okay.
Queensway is
That's
just
what I
there.
mentioned.
Yeah. I've been bugging Tim, I want to start selling some of those, because most of those are owned by the village.
All of that's owned by the village. It's
All of it is
highlighted.
okay, so. And it was supposed to
I
be
did-
for.
All the highlighted stuff's owned by the
All
village.
this, and this right here is, yeah, it
Everything blue,
was all village owned right through.
yeah,
So all the infrastructure's already put in,
not all of it.
No,
for the most part.
the.
I
If
don't
you
think
remember
Jasper
back
was there yet,
to the presentation from
From the lady.
the late
Mhm.
Sharon. She talked about getting your vision for an area down on paper, you come up with what you want to see or, alternatives for that area. And then you go to the developer, so, like I was looking at Sunset Shores, because I frankly never heard of it. It is a 55 and older community, so it is age restricted, like, River Bluffs or whatever in town by the Phil Seibert development across
Yeah.
from Mountain Town.
Mhm.
Yeah,
In Nelson Park.
yeah, that's a 55 and older development only.
Mhm.
So I do think that there is that market. And I think that market, if you age restricted, you could go to, the modular type homes and not have that long-term issue that Jason brings up that we
Right.
saw in the LR2 district. And that, that stems from a lot of those were single wide mobile homes that were cottages for people. They were never gonna be their primary home. It was their weekend place and, you know, 2 generations later, the family still got it. Nobody wants to do anything with it, you know?
If I'm not mistaken, that was the first place built at Lake Isabella, wasn't it? And then Bill Dunham's house up on the point. I think it was one of the first houses up this way, but I think the mobile home area, if I'm not mistaken, was the very first place.
Our first flat was
A lot of stuff, so.
flat 1.
Mhm. When I went to Clark's too, I've been dealing with them, with Melissa over there quite a bit, and I'm going exactly down that road for myself. To get out of my 3,000 square foot house down to about
Right.
1,200, 1,500 square feet. The cheapest one they had there was 131,000, that was last year, so I don't know if it gone up. And that was it was a nice, I thought it was 2-bedroom house, you know, full everything there. But you're right, you still have to bring in all the other
So
stuff.
when you add all that
It's
other
still
stuff,
up to
it
200,
was still,
250,000 easy.
it was still, like in 2022, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
When you look at that, it was but say around 240, 230 for a home, stick built.
Yep.
All right, that's with everything included.
Mhm.
But by the time you had 160 for the home, by the time you added all that, you're about $30, $40 a square foot difference
Mhm.
between the two. And when you start adding up
That adds up.
1,000 square foot,
Yep.
you're talking 30, 40 grand,
Mhm.
all right? That was substantial.
Yep.
Especially for some young people, that's a 55 and older. But if you want to get some younger people out here to do that, that's the only way that they're gonna afford it, because anything they can get towards that size. All right, is what they need.
Starter homes, like you said, so,
Starter.
yeah, smaller stuff to start out with, and then as their family grows or whatever, maybe they stay here like Isabella and buy a bigger house, or a goal to buy a house on the water or
See,
something like that too,
again,
so.
You get into the school district problem
Yeah.
of where they work, that's
Yeah.
why I like,
School district
Personally, I-
problem is very legitimate.
I like to see us start with the seniors. Because they have the money and we don't have to deal with the school problem of somebody here coming here and. School's that way and employment's that way. And there's nobody here to take them when the kids get off the bus. All
Right.
right? That's the issue.
I think we need to look at our amenities too, if we're gonna try to bring retired people in. One restaurant that's not really a restaurant in the, the golf course is the basic restaurant. That's about all we have. And there's really no other amenities unless you start going toward Mount Pleasant. I don't know if we can attract some type more amenities to come into the area.
Mhm.
We've talked about that, but we don't know.
Do they need more of a municipal system for that?
Yeah, without water and sewer, we're not gonna have a lot of development out there. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. There is land available, but we're not. Coldwater Road only has a average daily traffic volume of about 3,700. That's not a high commercial corridor. I mean,
It is for us out here, but you're
It
right,
is.
compared to other places,
Yeah.
no.
well, like when
No.
we've tried in the past to like lure back in the day, like a Rite Aid or a Walgreens, that type of business, and they're like, yeah, we're looking at 15,000 cars a day, for our locations, it's like. Well, we can do that in a week, yeah.
Like, again, I think since we're a bedroom community in Mount Pleasant, that's really what we are,
Mhm.
if you look at it. Anything more of that makes us more of the municipal system, and it's gonna raise your taxes. Because you gotta come out and pay for it somehow.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily advocating that we do that, and I don't wanna compete with taxes in Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
That's why everybody wants to
Practically
move out here.
are,
Yeah.
That's why I'd like to keep it as long as we can.
At least at my house.
From our position as the planning commission, I think the biggest responsibility is getting the right zoning in place in the right areas to promote the kind of building we want
Right.
to see, so maybe.
But I don't disagree with that at all. I think where we are uniquely positioned now than we were in our last master plan update is we've got a really good set of data here that we can tie into marketing towards getting that development outcome that we want, where before we were kind of on the back end of a different data set and, I think there are opportunities for us ahead in terms of how we market the community and how we reach out. if we can batten down some, you know, ideas of this is what we would like to see development wise in this area. You know, would, you know, would the village be open to, you know, working with a developer to develop north?
Hmm.
You know, and what type of pushback are we gonna get from the houses and the residents already in there that don't wanna see that development come into their neighborhood?
Yeah, I
Cause
guess.
that's gonna happen. They're gonna say, wait, I just wanna buy this and keep this all natural. You know, I like living in a quiet area.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yep.
I understand that.
Would it help our development any if we were the city instead of the village?
It doesn't matter at all. No,
Doesn't give us any kind of.
no.
Financially,
Well, financially, we'll get more from the state and from what we collect. The 1 mil that goes to Sherman Township and Bloomfield.
Because you're not
Now,
gonna
it's
raise
big
our
here, but
property.
No.
It's not gonna be
Yeah,
huge,
just
so.
No, the city village doesn't have any bearing on like state shared revenue. That's all population driven.
Oh.
It doesn't impact your Act 51 because cities and villages are in the same pool there. All of that is a population base. The true financial difference is if we get that 1 mil you're already paying to the township to come here,
Mhm.
after we pay for assessing and elections and tax billing, you know, that's 75 grand that we can put into police or roads or lake. Those are the three buckets that I think we need to focus on.
Mhm.
You know, we're not doing it to raise taxes on people. We don't want to raise taxes
No,
on people.
keep it
We
low.
want to pay for services and not tax you more is what we're trying to do. So,
but if we developed it, there's no financial burden to us, right? We would just first work to come up with a plan for an area, and then we would individually sell the lots. They would work with the person who's.
so there's an entangling component in north in that we claimed all of that property. The village claimed all that property in like 1999, 2000, 2001 for public purpose. Which means when we are done with it, we have to dispose of it. So doing a structured type development deal, I don't know if that's legally permissible because that's the same problem the city has encountered with Mount Pleasant property. They claim that for public purpose. They can't go around and turn that into economic development because that's not a public purpose in the eyes of the state of Michigan.
So a developer would have to come in and purchase all those lots
Correct.
themselves.
Yeah.
And then develop what they want to
Yeah.
develop. And right now, if we sell those lots, because they're village owned, we don't get to make any money out.
We don't get anything,
Right,
we
we
get
can only
nothing.
recollect what we spend.
$25.
Okay.
So there's no incentive for us to get rid of these lots at this point in time. Until we can figure out a way to turn that into something beneficial.
Could you, and so if they're
There's no way we-
public,
we
is
do
that
have
where
public
you could,
use.
because those ones where
Yeah,
that
they're
295 is at. The tax roll 295, the stuff right behind that, that's kind of where we talked about if we ever put maybe a big
Community park, cemetery.
something.
Yeah, we've talked
okay,
about
that's
this
where
area
that
up in
was.
here quite a bit for
Yes.
that purpose.
Mhm.
You know, and in our master plan right now, we did break this down a little bit. Was it in there? Might not.
I like that little circle drive there, there's no
Zaragoza
houses
Court?
there at
There
all.
goes the court. I've been trying to get them to develop for a long
That's
time.
Jeff's
That's why I want to
dream
build.
place.
But they won't let it go. I have some personal interest in that area, but only for myself, so not as a developer or any of that kind of stuff.
Not to point it out,
Yeah,
but
it's
you
really
were
cool.
on the
Never- didn't know it
council
was
for
there.
many years, Mr.
I know that, but I wasn't interested then, so, not like I am now,
We have to
So-
buy them.
In our current master plan, we actually did do a breakdown on this, and so. We make more money. In terms of. Our dollars. On people, not on your property taxes.
Hmm.
Because we have that tax cap in place. So the scenario that we put in the master plan to illustrate this was. You know. Consider a new residential development of 20 homes with a market value of $150,000 each. Remind you, this was 2018.
Oh, yeah.
Each occupied by a family of 4, which requires the development of a new 1,000-foot street, which is a local street. So the cost to maintain the street, for all that, we factored at 72 grand. Now, total over the life of the street.
Oh, okay, so 15
Yep.
years, okay, all right.
Over that same time frame, if you just look at the numbers, the property taxes you're gonna get $1,500. You're gonna get 7,000 on the revenue sharing on the population, and 2,500, which is an Act 51, which is a distance and population formula. So you get the footage of the street plus the population of the community. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist looking at it and say, we get $1,500 on the property taxes and we get 9,550 on the population component. Like, with the tax cap that we have, people are more important to us than property. It really truly is. You know, that's
Very interesting.
when, you know, people would come in, this was pre-pellet factory, that kind of stuff, and they say, you know, we just need to get business out here and increase the tax base. It's like, no, our tax base is enormous.
Yeah.
We just don't multiply that by anything, people. Like, our
Not-
tax base is bigger than the city of Clare. It's twice the size of the city of Ithaca. It's 110 million in 2024 dollars. Like, we have a ginormous tax base. We
Yeah.
just don't levy a tax of a significant portion,
Which brings the people here.
which brings the people here. And
Mhm.
that is a competitive advantage that we cannot lose sight of. It, you know,
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
But I like Leo's idea that the senior type stuff is something we don't have to, we'll have a better, easier time, I think. Attracting people who already live here, if not people from outside of Lake Isabella, who might want to retire in this area for the sports lake, for all that kind of stuff.
Well, they have their community, I mean, and they love having a community.
Mhm.
That
Totally.
they share the same, you know, aches and pains, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah,
You know, hate to say it, but they have the same ideas. If you have a community place where they can get together, and they can have their coffee, they can play cards, or they have a shuffleboard court or something on, kind of thing. And it's a place to gather.
plus we have all the external stuff, you know, golf course, the lake, the airport, for how long that lasts. You know, but quieter residential area here too, and does
Yeah.
not get that noisy around here.
And they have people next door that they can, they're not isolated,
Mhm.
and that's what they.
But you do gotta go back to what we talked about before with. Healthcare out here and
Correct.
emergency out here and like Mike was saying, a little bit more. Something to do out here for
Yeah.
the retired, the. Older generation.
Right, we need easy access
need
to
some more
finding for
shuffleboard.
hiking. What do we have over here? Do we have pickleball?
they pickleball. there.
Pickleball, we need some more
Pickleball and
pickleball.
tennis, and I should check these things out.
But we also have a lot of people who leave from the winter.
Well, a big thing too with a lot of them is gonna be parks, it's gonna be places to walk, it's
Mhm.
gonna be trails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is not a negative, you know, statement against the association, but we are, I think, underserviced when it comes to recreational assets in our community,
Mhm.
you know, and
And
that's,
we are an outdoor community.
we're an outdoor community that,
Definitely, so.
you know, does not cater to parks and trails.
Yeah,
We tried. I mean,
Tried.
We tried, but
And people said, we really just want you to fix the lake. That's what we're doing.
that's become the priority, and I think people are gonna be happy with that.
You know, but we've got, you know, we've got a DPW property over here on Coldwater Road.
Mhm.
We have this parcel here that we've had internal talks, you know, high level council, you know, maybe someday we build a new village hall here and we do that in a way that's got, you know, more of a community center space component to it than what we have at this facility here. We'd obviously sell this building, build there. But, you know, we think about those things of being a gathering place. We're not a walkable community,
Mhm.
and that's on the wrong side of Coldwater Road.
Yeah.
And
Are we-
that wouldn't even really be a golf cart
Yeah,
You know,
ride either.
so are we better off staying put and building on the lot that we own next to our office here? Because that's certainly a much more pedestrian friendly,
Yeah.
calmer street environment than even if we came down here and you had to come in through this, what we paved, and you come in this way, have a building oriented this way.
That Shannon's old property?
That's Shannon's old property, yeah. You know, there's certainly a
Makes
few,
sense, but would not make sense with making the
correct,
community up on the north side.
you know, I mean, we'd love to get all of our stuff on one piece of property.
Right.
You know, it makes a lot of sense to do that, but. It's hard to get rid of this location too, I think, because this is just such a great location.
Mhm.
While it's not walkable to anyone on the other side of the lake, it's not really inconvenient to get here. And once you're here, you're, you know. When you get up in here. Because we had talked also, when we built this building, of building up here.
Mhm.
You know, and the concern then was quite frankly, safety. You know, if someone were to come in and cause some type of disruption. You know, there's only usually two of us in the office. And at that time, I was doing a lot more stuff outside the office in terms of DPW stuff. It's like,
Right.
Jessica's here by herself a lot then. It's like, that wasn't a safe environment for her to be in,
No.
quite frankly. Or anybody by themselves.
So how many acres is that? 16 acres?
Yeah, when you factor in.
5 acres up top.
Is that?
Yes, this is about 5 up here, give or take. We went all the way down here and all the way up here, and we actually own these as well.
Would that be a big
Closer to
enough
top
area
of
for a
that.
developer to come in and develop it with trails and stuff like that? They'd have to take the whole package. They couldn't take individual lots.
Yeah, and I think we would, to make something like that work, just envisioning the conversation, we would have to involve the county treasurer, because they're the one that gets the money from the sale of the lots. So if there was some way to work out an arrangement where, you know, they got more than $25 a lot.
Yeah.
You would hope they'd be willing to work with us.
And we have a new county treasurer, so.
We have a new county treasurer. But again, you also have to factor in the political pushback, and you're gonna get that up there. You know, things that I've come to appreciate in our community being here a long time, we have very different neighborhoods. You know, this is an area in north that is very similar to this area down here in south in terms of we are in the country.
Yep.
You know, we're not suburban, we're not, you know, we are country over here. Where you get onto Fairway Drive is very much, we are suburbia,
Yeah.
you know,
Higher tax base, you know, more money up there.
more density,
Yeah.
you know, same really in my neighborhood now. Yeah. More people build in my neighborhood.
But doesn't it come
Start
down,
with that red house.
doesn't it come down to us looking at areas?
It's a nice looking house, it's gray now.
It was a lot better when it was red.
Doesn't it look at,
Use that rental office at all? Have you ever seen that lady there?
Next door?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The red horse.
It's on Queensway,
What's her name?
it's across from the river. Before you loop around to Bundy, that was the
Drawing
first
blank
house
on her
that
name.
they built out here.
but she was out of there all the time.
We built that
She
in two
passed away.
thousand seven.
I used to go, but I forgot. I was just questioning to see if anybody still uses that Century 21 Barrowman Peaks old building.
yes,
That's Barrowman.
my brother worked for that, the realtor company right here. Yeah, they were just bought out by my brother's company, the same company out in Saginaw. So my brother had called me and said, hey, we just purchased the company itself, so that's part of their big company now.
Mhm.
And he was shocked, one of his first things is how you guys have a huge number of houses that are, you know, $500,000 or more. I said, yeah, I've been telling you that for years. He just never really realized the amount of money that's here, especially on the lake. That's been here. He always just thought of it as just another lake, like Sanford Lake or something like that. It was so, you know, but yeah, that building is still being used
So is
for
it,
realtor stuff.
oh, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
is your brother in real estate?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, if you know Marcus Gobiak in Saginaw. He's the biggest, if not one of the biggest, so. about that.
Lahey, Darlene Lahey was there.
Pardon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she retired.
She retired, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen their signs, yeah, okay.
I was just curious, cause every time I go by there, it just wonders, I haven't seen a car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Geez, are they ever using this building or not?
Hey, we got the most important thing out of the building and put it up on the wall.
What was it?
It's the Lake Isabella diorama thing.
Oh,
The
cool.
thing right here in the, when you walk in.
Yeah, I saw that. I
Around the
didn't know
corner,
that. came
what,
into-
what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have a ski hill, we're supposed to have a horse ranch,
Yeah.
we're supposed to have, yeah, look at that map out there.
Second Lake.
They had some great ideas on what they wanted to do back in the seventies and eighties when they developed.
But
this
then they
area.
went broke.
Yep. Mhm.
Yes.
That or it just never sold off as fast
Wow.
as much as what they thought it would, but they got some great ideas, so.
Then they had a tax sale and
Yeah.
then it was.
And
then
some
everybody went up
arguments
And
and-
then went into the Isabella County court system because of all the tax sales.
Mhm.
And then somebody bought a lot, but the lot lines moved. So they had to figure out where the lot lines were. Now, that was, yeah, that was my tenure as a lending officer, trying to figure out when people want, what are you buying? Tell me what you're buying and you get clear title and title insurance.
Sure.
No, we can't. Well, what can I say?
Yeah.
So where do we go from here at this point?
Does Canadian Lakes have? They don't have municipal water, do they have?
I think they have sewer.
I don't know.
Sewer, I think,
I think they have
yeah.
sewer.
They have city water.
I don't think they have city water, but I think
No.
they have sewer.
I didn't think they had sewer.
I was
I'm not
thinking
sure
of the
if they
stuff
have
that's out
water.
there. I mean, most of it's.
Necessarily.
Well, the golf courses and stuff like that that are out there, the Royal and the other two like that.
I'm not sure even by the castle, but I'm not sure that it's got.
Yeah, I don't know if they have septic out there or if they have some kind of sewer system.
Yeah. Hey, downtown.
I'm pretty sure
Bowman's-
every,
Bowman's put all the development in. and
yeah, we've,
They're basically got everything downtown there, yeah.
Mhm.
that, I don't think that's sewer, because we put the Shell station in, we put. We put,
I'm pretty sure.
we didn't put the
they're
bank
private
in, but we
septic
put the
systems,
Shell
but
station, the ice cream shop, the hardware.
Hmm.
The addition on the grocery store.
You talking down by like where Antlers is at, the restaurant, as you get in the Canadian Lake?
Yes, south of that.
South of that, down past the airport?
We,
Oh, right when you first come in,
Oh, okay.
the
First
stop
time you got
sign
the Shell
there.
station.
Then turns south.
you got the hardware. Just a couple of years, 2 years ago, I did the ice cream and the pizza shop
Okay,
that's. Just from Mercantile, well, yeah, this is Mercantile still, right?
Isabella's right there on the corner.
Isabella's there and they got whatever that Spectrum,
Yes.
is it Spectrum?
Orwell Health, they call it now.
okay.
But Mercantile's got a.
We had a little
Or
thing
you
on the
have,
corner.
though.
We don't anymore. We're in Big Rapids instead, but.
But, yeah, it seemed like we never tied into a sewer or
What township is that in?
Morton. And. I mean, to be honest, they got. They got quite a bit development. Out there.
I haven't felt it in a while, but.
But most of it's owned by
Bowman's.
Bowman's.
Dan Bowman right now runs it.
Huh?
Dan Bowman.
Well, the kids are,
Pat Bowman,
yeah, it's Pat and Pat's kids.
Jeff and Ryan.
Yeah, you're right,
They're-
I've seen
Jeff,
them.
Ryan and the daughter are going into a lot of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's private septics, but. I asked one of the realtors, he's not answering me yet, but
So septic on each.
I'm pretty
big
sure.
house, Not like
Mhm.
not like they do it. Is there?
No,
Buying on
no.
septic,
I don't think so.
no, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure they're all private units, well and septic out there.
okay. But either way, I was like I was saying, I think our first moves is maybe start looking at areas that we can. Zone the way that we think. We would want to encourage people to bring stuff in. You know, so if we find an area that we'd like to bring a developer in and create all the senior housing. Then we need to make sure that the land itself is zoned properly.
Yeah, I mean,
With
we
the
can
ag-
look at what they're doing. I know they have more amenities because they have, like, the St. Ives has a pool and
Yeah.
there's a few different things that way.
Mhm.
But as far as lake for people who are lake people, our lake is better. It's
Oh,
more of a
definitely.
sports lake, their lake
Most
system,
definitely.
these tiny little things.
Right,
and-
they're often-
They're little ponds.
Yes, yes, they are, they don't stand a chance up against us, but
Right.
then their golf course, really, the two golf courses have some different
Yeah.
things that we don't, and then they've got those condos across from the one. And the food out there has gotten so darn good at some of these places too, so you're not wrong, we need,
But
you
they're
know,
all,
if you're home and you're kind of confined and your kids come visit, you kind of need a place
lot
to be
owners-
able to go have a nice meal.
you have to pay
Yeah.
so much.
I wish we could figure out how to get
Castle.
this to take off.
You
but
build every
Just
month.
need people to come.
Well, I was hoping.
We
this
just
would
need
go-
employees and service it. I think
We looked up
initial
there
people
before we
would
bought
go.
here.
I
Just
think we just
imagine
need to
like
get
it was
food within an hour and a
Yeah,
half.
that's
Yeah.
6 o'clock,
I know,
and every Thursday, it's no wake all day.
Oh, some parts of the lake was like.
And you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
get, if your service
We
isn't
looked at
there,
first.
you're not serving enough
It was
clients in the
bigger.
evening, you pay your.
We have
Yes.
connection.
Yeah,
You're
but-
not
but-
turning the
But
wheel.
Blue Lake is a better
Yeah.
lake than most of them over there,
Mm.
but
You know,
I guess at this
the-
point, where do we go?
It's such a great concept, I just wonder
I-
money wise how we get
concept, but-
started.
What's our next?
Second Canadian Lakes.
This, what, that's us.
Oh, the golf course, okay, I'm sorry.
We're right here,
It's the size of one of the Canadian lakes, yeah.
right there.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Some of them- some of them are
I
really
can see
small.
how you'd mistake
I've
that.
never been out there, there's like a big pond in some cases, yeah.
There's just a whole bunch of them.
Oh, I see, that's the lake, okay.
Yeah, they're small, some of them were really small. But they're all.
They do have a nice beach area though.
We
Yeah,
do have a nice beach on, just on the one though, isn't it?
It's around the curve, I think.
Yeah,
and they have a dog park.
Yeah, I see a dog park out there. Legacy Park.
and the castle's really cool.
Well, there's,
Could we build a castle, Tim?
There, what is the, I mean, I have no idea, but what is the total area that they
This is-
demand your Canadian lakes?
Well, they was.
It's bigger than us.
I mean, it's gotta be, how many acres does
Oh, we have a
Canadian
senior
lakes,
prom there.
encompass?
Oh,
I
but
don't know.
I mean, they can have all that
It's
because
definitely bigger
they're so huge.
here, I mean, especially with the two golf.
11.58. We are 4.6.
Yeah.
So they're 2.5 times geographically. our
That's
size.
why they can set aside the dog park and all that other stuff over there.
And that's why I was hoping with our city talk, that's a time that the state boundaries can be changed for doing that. It doesn't sound like council would want to go down that road, but
No, we do.
that's where I was thinking it would be nice to sort of expand that.
The Restaurant and the ice cream.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, I wish
We
we
made it,
had,
we're not
across the
coming
street
after
years
the
ago,
land.
there was a little workout
Right
gym,
after
and there's an ice cream shop, and there's all these little things.
You get.
I just am shocked that we cannot make it go with those things.
It's not good for me.
I mean, who doesn't love ice cream? I could be there every.
They're also,
Most of them
But
were,
that was all Landa and Scott that owned all those.
Most of them were on Scott.
maybe.
If somebody else
needed
had-
To be somewhere, I like Scott, but. Maybe it was the wrong person.
Well, I had heard through the
Very few
grapevine
hundred
that
people, too.
Ace Hardware wants to purchase all the rest of that
In
Sunset Plaza outside of the gas station.
Association, which has a lot of
Pizza
different
place.
bankers.
So everything else like that,
And if I
land,
can-
all the way, Ace Hardware.
what I was thinking
Owns
too
that,
is.
same gentleman up in Clare.
Yeah.
We have
Would like
never
to
been a
purchase the
part
rest of that lot.
NBC.
But if you purchase. the
Included-
daycare go and all
Included the
that.
daycare,
I'm becoming more and more inclined.
that-
So there's-
Mainly toward
there's,
network.
it's set, the sanitary on that set up a little weird.
Entities.
So
Oh, I mean, there's so many different entities.
The gas station has,
That opens some doors for development here too.
I'm not sure how
You know,
that.
we don't do a great job.
Maybe
marketing
Scott, but then
Because we've never had.
I don't know how many
focus.
suites are in
You
there.
know, I think
And then
we
there's only
do
two
attract some
other-
Commercial development.
There's two others,
Used for more residential development.
and then that's why one failed
The vendors.
when Scott sold,
Mhm.
and the guy that owned it
That,
must have just took the money.
he combined those on there.
The drop in price,
Oh,
cause
the expensive.
they never, they just took it out in public.
Bathrooms, and they have it.
So that's
The
why
beers and.
there's
and
a
all that.
line in Ace Hardware, that's why there never really was one in the gas
And they can
station,
come in
because
and they can.
it's
get
in the
around.
back.
And if they take a buck or two, I'm good for
That's why
that.
there's no
You know,
public
good for
restroom
them.
in there.
If they could help us Well, maybe,
Scott said he pumps.
because Joe was a builder,
That
I'm
tank
sure he's
every 3 months or something like that.
That doesn't even seem sanitary.
Well, when we went out there on the backside,
Was it the field or the
But
pump
they
that you
mentioned
have,
the water corporation.
that's all behind the store, or behind the.
I think
first
so.
part.
Too much
You
water,
know, like if you look
the
at,
water table too high or what was?
he doesn't have a grease trap and
Oh, for the
a party
kitchen,
store.
okay. All the pizza and all the other stuff,
All that stuff
hamburgers and
goes
all that
in
stuff.
I think they've broken out of the idea of staying in Mount Pleasant.
But there,
well, they absolutely
I
have,
know
and
there's
they've
two
also
other-
broken out of the
one or
idea,
two.
that their
And
focus is
Ace-
industrial. Like, when I started George Dunn, was our
It seemed like
president
Ace Hardware
and president
is
of
on.
MDC, and it's like, it makes no sense for the village to join,
We're gonna fail.
you know, we're not
I don't
gonna
know
you
if
know,
they
factory
took
or, you know,
over.
because they were so focused on the more marks
Well,
and,
Oh, yeah,
you know,
Works out.
they wanted to be
Sanitary.
industrial based in the
Yeah.
factory.
I just
Not even
assumed
if they
everyone was
sell a
saying
thing in
because we're a
Suffolk County
redeveloped
without
community.
working
You know, we've been
systems.
contacted by them on a couple of different projects.
You-
For
you
our business
end up
owners that can apply for grants
They
because we're in
require
this program.
You to put an escrow,
You know, with that focus
The amount
changing of your
cost for it.
organization, you should probably reevaluate.
you either gotta replace that,
Oh, I
yeah,
definitely,
or you,
definitely.
you
At the bank, we got some in
so-called put it
Michigan.
in escrow or, you know, that's,
Bandit.
and they drop off, they drop off the, whatever it would cost.
Yeah,
off the
but you
sales
can't even
price.
record the deed residentially, you can't
At this
record,
point, I-
you have
My
to,
daughter works for.
the time of transfer has to happen.
And
And if it goes in escrow, you only have so much time to get that well and septic fixed.
they're losing their money pretty
But
much. on
commercially, I guess I don't know how that works,
Because
but that's,
They spend so much money.
Isabella
paying,
County should be
the guys
being
coming out of
higher.
that School,
I-
X dollars, and within 15 patients a day, which.
In residential, I know
Right.
of,
But the surgery and the
landowners
specialties,
that
I
have
mean,
sold
the
their
PAs, like
property,
there's a PA and
putting
I see it's advertised.
money in the escrow, and not
Yeah.
able to sell
But you can get
without
something of that
fixing.
if the weather conditions.
I had to do the time of transfer, and it was stated by the health department,
There's
this is,
someone
this is a
dedicated once a
requirement.
week, twice
Yeah,
a
but they
week.
only have like 90 days to
You know,
get done
yeah,
and then,
That if you go out here where you have all day.
and the money's held at either the financial institution or the title
Oh,
company.
gotcha.
They're not holding it themselves like money off. It's held in escrow and the
I think
repair
that-
really has to happen.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So, but
I
commercial.
wonder how that
I'll tell
happens,
you
because
that.
I don't think that ever got
Hundred,
fixed.
200,
We're
That
supposed,
doesn't-
we have a
Yeah.
requirement, we're supposed to hold
Yeah.
escrow
but they're.
to be able to
massive.
fix our system if it goes down.
Mhm.
And we've just started an escrow.
But if we could get a small one.
Yeah. But that's if it goes down. This is if it actually fails upon sale. You cannot sell without having.
Yeah, if it fails upon
Find out
inspection.
more down south. and-
Which you do those
Which I
inspections,
do.
right? Yeah.
So,
That's the problem they're gonna have in Wademan.
Because
That's why I think they're gonna have to put the sewer system in, because most of the houses right on in Wademan cannot pass a septic inspection. So there's no way they can sell their houses right now. So I haven't been as involved with it since I'm not on that board anymore, but I know in the end, I'm assuming the state of Michigan, could come in and say,
But
you're
what's the
gonna put a
groundwater
sewer
there?
system in,
I mean,
whether you
even,
want to or not.
even if they put it in and you get, and still you got a sewer system. Is the groundwater there still safe?
You're gonna have an elevated system.
Well, no, not.
No,
Oh,
no,
you're
I
talking,
mean, you go out in your backyard, you wanna put something in the ground, your dog runs around on the grass.
Mhm.
Is the contamination deep or is it ground level?
Well, I mean, that's part of the reason why you have to have your well and your septic.
I understand,
175 or 100 feet
But I
apart,
heard that there could, but I, so where is the contamination? So if you bought a home and you put a raised garden, is that garden safe?
Oh. You mean
I mean, are
water?
you gonna put it in the soil right there?
I don't know if a tree falls in the woods, ain't nobody's there.
That'd be my concern of, even if you get a sewer system, how many people wanna move out there? Because can they go out and have your kids play and they're gonna jump on the grass and they're gonna roll over their dogs and all that? Is that safe?
well, it wouldn't be that the grounds,
Saturated or anything.
No.
No.
it's not that it would be not safe, it's saturated and makes your drain field fail.
Mhm.
And so then you would have to put in a raised system.
But in this case, if they put the sewer system like in Wademan, part of that is they will make you break up your tank.
I
So
understand,
you can't use all that stuff
but the
anymore.
contamination's already in the soil, am I not, am I correct?
The contamination that they're finding right now with E. coli that's testing really high, that's only being found in the county drains themselves, so
That
whatever.
was
Oh, you're talking about
In Wayman.
like
what I'm
Wayman
talking
and
about,
the Beale
yeah.
City when they were
Yeah.
checking the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see us ever getting a sewer system of water in here, not in the next 25 years,
No, but I
maybe
just
longer.
wanna know, even when they get that in there,
Mhm.
what is the marketability of lots there? The stigma is still gonna be in somebody's mind. You know.
Not only that, but
Well, I would
the
think
cost.
that if they correct the problem, that it would go away. I mean,
Yeah.
the actual.
I don't think it's like a toxic waste.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
weight,
No, no,
the
no,
waste
no,
end of it,
I don't
that much.
if it was to get corrected, it would.
Stigmatized, Wayman that way.
No,
I
right.
don't mean to do that.
Be the same anywhere.
But I was just curious, because I heard that it has to have a system, and I was trying to figure out the extent of the damage.
Yeah, probably not nearly as bad as like what went on in Beale City, but
Right.
that is a very expensive adventure. It's like a 15-year millage and $175 a month for every homeowner.
Well,
So if forever and ever. So you have tax ramification
Maintenance, right.
and $175 a month maintenance.
well, that doesn't
Yeah,
include the $2,000 it's gonna hook
What's,
up the
what's the
system to the house.
What do you get it?
Well, they'll do so
what's
many
the
feet for so much, and
cost?
You don't
They
have
do
money
it by
for
use,
the
they do it by usage, right?
Because they don't.
Water's by usage,
there-
but
No,
this.
that's why
the
sewer
sewage
usually
is just
that they
included
would
in
apply
the
for
taxes, I
would come
think.
to
There's no
really,
separate
really
septic
low
bill for
percentage.
your.
Okay, cause on
It'd be a
commercial,
40-year
There
grant.
is.
it is, they don't, they base off.
Install
of
everything and
your
then
water
maintenance
usage.
while it's built up.
They do,
Huh.
they go off your water.
At least people
I'm
can sell their
surprised
house.
that there's not more places
Yeah,
trying to do
right now
it the
they
way we
can't
did it
pass
out
the
there,
septic.
because
No, so they
originally
can't
that
put it,
system
Well,
was like
none of the
33
businesses there.
Right.
houses, or 33 places where
I'm sorry.
people live.
We're going off
That's a
track.
big system,
Looking at Allen.
around here, so I'm
Developer
surprised they're not trying to set something up like that. So who with the grinders, that the
Allen
association
Homes.
does,
Okay.
all the owners
But that's good.
in there,
The separate association
Right now.
that over there, you're saying
Whispering Pines,
association.
yeah, you buy a lot there, you're an
So
owner.
they're used to having something more in nature.
But it was originally set up for
Yeah.
35, I think it is, and we got 19 on it, so it's a huge system. With very little usage.
You have 19 people on it already?
Yeah, well, no, there's 19 lots. We
Right, I was
have-
gonna say, I didn't think you had that many.
No,
Four houses?
1, 2,
An idea.
3, 4, 5 on there.
Okay.
Be.
And that's still
All right.
just the peninsula, just the peninsula, the island area,
Size lots you.
is all that
can
goes
get
up
there
to,
pass.
uphill to that, right? That
It's
doesn't.
the island and along Rollin Road
Right.
down to the
I
creek.
mean,
But it used to
you're
include
not gonna
phase
get
2,
a-
which would
Right,
be the
which-
Clintix area,
That's where they came up with the 35.
when nobody built
houses.
it there, right?
And the people that have built that can't join it.
They can.
They got the foundation crew, they got the garage building crew.
So that
You
was
said
just
hundred and
See, they
seventy-five.
do the whole
They
thing.
get the whole package.
Chip responded in it. Canadian like our private.
But I'd say if
septic
you
units.
sit around and say, "Crap, this is
And he
what
was
you
built
have
the
to
first
do."
Did you say it's hundred and seventy-five
What kind of
dollars a month?
modules can you
Yes.
put in here?
These are.
That's actually
That's
cheap.
180.
Well, I just square foot. I mean,
You
in
can't-
a 20-year system, subjects last longer than that, but in an average 25 years.
I know, it's stuff, yeah,
You're-
260.
Typical, if it's
So
raised,
you take 100.
which is a sandy out here, so.
But these guys are
Really shouldn't have to put a raised one.
Right.
They've got crews all over.
I don't know what a standard one is, but a raised one, you're talking 25.
Well, They would.
25
they put in
plus
roads
and
stuff,
175
too, or
in
exactly.
20 years is 42 grand.
If I'm not mistaken, they did have to do a raised one down on Peninsula Drive.
Oh, did they?
I think so, Tim will know for sure.
What's that?
Didn't they
Well,
do
it'd
a
be either
raised
grade-
septic system where
Yeah,
Bill Dunham wanted to
it
build
would be
there
either
at,
because it was clay or it
on
was
Vegetable
high water
Drive.
table.
when they wanted to do the corner
No.
and they couldn't fit the whole system and they didn't do a raised system there? Did they even build?
We don't have a raised system in the village.
I thought
I mean, we
that,
have one on par. I take that back. I know.
okay, but I thought that one down on Peninsula, that's what their
Yeah.
option was gonna be if they
Yep.
wanted to do that.
No, so for any of the newer developments that have had to do anything, and there's only probably 3 or 4 that come to my mind. They put in an Elgin pack bed filter under the drain field. So you got your tank and it's going out to your leach field. Now leach field is opposed to just going straight down into pea gravel. It goes through a filter, a media filter, then into the ground. So it's being filtered before it is returned to the groundwater.
You have to maintain that media or whatever, that
It's-
gets changed out every often.
I think it's like a 30-year life
Oh,
on it,
okay, all right, so.
you know.
But the monthly fee stuff, I know
We
it's for
could
a lot
put
of
that in, 'cause
regular
it's some
maintenance,
dollars.
for all the piping and the grinders and all the rest of that
Yeah,
stuff,
they-
moving that
We could get
sewage.
X dollars.
Yeah,
from
worries me, I don't think it's like, set either, I mean, if costs go up, that could go up.
Yeah.
That caught one of my buyers by surprise, they didn't realize they'd $175
In other words,
monthly.
if somehow we could front the
That's
road,
I
I.
didn't understand much.
You're right to do that, but.
300 a year?
A year?
Bill.
Okay, I had
300 a
heard
year.
400, but then I had heard.
Well, it's 500 if you
With
put a
the payments,
house.
'cause you're-
Yeah,
because
A year.
But
You
That's-
join,
that's-
when you join the septic, and that's $300.
That's
That's
told me it's
cheap.
400 a month, and I didn't believe that, so.
If you're gonna be
Yeah.
50, you.
That was a while ago.
Do this and say we would.
But we
like
have to
10
plow
homes
around the
or
road here.
15 homes a year,
Mhm.
no more than that.
But you guys are association members now, right?
No, I tried to get him to go ahead and do it, and then they came to the council and says, we're not gonna do any more private road. Right after
You tried.
All right. we need wine,
So what's our next,
I.
what's our next step? By the way, the community hasn't been watching us willy-nilly, have they?
There's somebody watching right now.
It's recorded though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's gonna be on YouTube, so. So all of our conversations, if the mic picked
Need
it
to
up.
start wearing a mask.
We were looking at a website that does a lot of these developments. And there's one in Big Rapids, there's one in Sparta, there used to be rural.
Okay,
We were just looking at it. The average price of their homes, $163 a square foot.
180.
180 per square foot.
And a 1,500 square foot house, that adds up.
1,800.
so what I
Well,
think I'm
when
hearing
you
us
stick
say,
go, when you're looking at 260,
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
we need to talk.
all right,
to them to see.
when they say, see the difference.
Control, I had no idea we're being
Whether.
videoed this whole time.
But that's the whole thing, you're done.
There's a lot of gibberish inside bars.
Not just a house.
Right, but you're gonna buy the land and put all the utilities in and do all the other stuff, you know, that requires if you do a modular home or a stick home, either one.
So here's one of the developments in Greenville.
True story, huh? That modulars or stick
No.
built?
They're stick built.
Okay,
So at 324.9. Divided by 1830
Is that on a?
is $177 a square foot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You got your first
Depends if you
floor.
wanna tell them, I don't want
Second.
18, I don't want 2-story homes, I want ranch style,
Mhm.
you know,
No stairs. that
You know,
were
basically,
55
or a
or
basement,
over.
maybe.
1,500 square foot or less, you know, that type.
Right,
Exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, mine down the road is what? Maybe 17 I got a ranch style, 1,700
Mhm.
on that, and I got a full basement, but if you don't
Okay.
use the basement, your choice is don't go down there. And you know, I got another bedroom, bathroom and a rec room, a second kitchen down there.
Finished.
And so my kids use that,
Mhm.
you know. my
it walks
wife-
out to the water, right?
No, I don't walk out, I just I have it stairs you climb up. I'm
To go out to the water?
on a hill,
Okay,
Okay.
so my house looks like a ranch style home,
Mhm.
okay.
and we live upstairs.
Yeah.
All right. But for that, it's more than what we need. And for just the two of us,
Mhm.
the basement, the extra bedrooms that we have upstairs and one downstairs is when all the kids decide to come and descend on us. And that we can shove them downstairs, whatever that, kick them down the stairs and say, have fun, you know, that type of thing.
But it's beneficial to people in the future too, when you sell it or whatever like that too, that house and then develop for bigger families and then this kind of environment that encourages the kids and the grandkids.
That really
to come up.
doesn't seem too awful bad.
No,
No, so what,
Is that a slab on, I mean, you shouldn't be doing.
This has got
slab on
basement.
grade here, it's got a
Basement.
foundation,
Basement, yeah.
oh, it's got a basement?
Finished basement. This one.
Well,
That was the 309, or is that different?
Why shouldn't you do
That is
slab?
this one.
Here,
why shouldn't you, why you got one?
What is Cedar
Well,
Wood?
yeah, the 3 or 4 of them out where I'm at.
This is
Slab,
Greenville area.
heating and then
Greenville,
heating in the
North
floor.
Carolina?
No, downtown.
Shifted.
Basically.
Well, what you have to do is you have to dig it out and fill it.
Okay.
In other words, you can't just build, you have
Howard
to dig
City.
it out
You
and
know
then fill
Howard
it all with
City.
sand.
I think so.
On the way to Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
So you have to
Okay.
spend a lot of
Oh,
money.
I've seen
If you-
it.
if you go
None-
down 46
none
and you turn left, you get down.
The road
Still could shift.
Or 57?
I mean, you're building on, building on
But I
engineering
mean, something. of
fills,
this
which you
nature,
saying.
The question is,
I think the foundation's done, but the dirt.
I don't know if they do the roads,
So
the
the
infrastructure,
foundations
or
are pretty,
they can.
fill it with sand, but the foundations go down.
You buy the lot, you know.
That's why I think, that's where.
So it does have a
Village and
foundation, it has a
developer has
foundation
to
wall
work on the
with a
roads.
slab on grade.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I,
have to be
you know, we
delivered
could get a,
into a-
recapture.
In Tennessee,
investment.
you don't have
That's-
a foundation,
That's fine, but I
it's
think
slab.
this is the type of.
Well, just like a
people
big
that look
piece
for
of
it.
concrete.
like
Yeah.
a, like an
So one
outside
person
apron.
does it from start to
Yeah.
finish.
I can see what you're saying, because our
If we
road,
did something like that, and you had a
because
small
they
little
raise and
neighborhood
lower
like
the
that,
water level.
the village would
our
only be
road
responsible for
shows
the road
cracks.
itself, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to worry about, the utilities have to be
Right.
done by the developer, water, electricity.
Well, that's the thing, the utilities are already pretty much there unless you're
Right.
doing like the pellet factory property.
Right, exactly, so that.
If you're coming in off the north, there's already electric, there's already
Mhm.
phone, there's already. I don't know if they did fiber out there yet, but I can check real easy.
Well, I think, Camp right down, Campo, I think has fiber down
Yeah.
that way, so they would just tap in that way, so. I know if you do the fiber through Homeworks, they'll bring the fiber in
Yeah.
free. Depends on how close their connection is though, but if they're anywhere down baseline or any of that kind of stuff, it shouldn't be hard to do.
You know, if we were looking just at north. Is the political, I don't have it up anymore,
Oh,
but
okay.
is the,
That's not a bad looking house.
it's not a bad looking house.
so if we were to, what would the next step be? If we thought that we wanted to start with a 6 to 8 unit area, or, you know, do we have to get plans drawn up?
And that would be.
Zoning would be one of the first.
So here's my kind of thought on this. Is the politically tolerable plan to have the development come off of Drew and not have any of the development on Iberian?
Oh, yeah, because we had talked about having a road back, that's when we were talking about cemetery and all that.
So if you did that, you could. You could essentially, I don't know if you wanna replat or whatever, but, you know, make all of these straight through. Like they did down on Britain.
All one lot, you mean?
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
So they'd be long skinny lots.
on
and-
skinny, like. The folks down here did. So these are. There's a row of lots at front clubhouse and a row that front with cruise, and over time, they just bought them all out and. They made them into long between the two.
But you could put a, you know, you could put in a nice walking track all the way around there.
So their driveways would come off from Drew Road similarly to some of the other, but they have.
They have
I don't think there's
access.
Choice whether they want it to be part of like Lake Isabel.
No, they're still like this
Oh,
development.
yeah, south of Deer. Road.
They're not getting out of the village or-
The village property.
All the way to the stop sign where LOR is, or,
So the village
That's quite all
and
that way down, Brian Hughes' house and.
right in here.
Yeah.
Or actually right here.
The lawyer is not part of the village.
Floor's not in the village.
And neither is the. next
Resco's
couple
old
lots.
property
Right,
or.
that's what I was talking about with state boundaries, if we could square off this area, but.
But have access to that Iberian Drive. So if they wanted to
pull straight
take their,
through.
well, not necessarily that, but if you're talking retirement. People with golf carts and whatnot, be able to use.
those drives to be
Mhm.
able to drive around, otherwise you're driving around in a little teeny circle.
Can't use golf course up there right now, can we?
Yeah.
Oh, you can, okay. So it doesn't stop on Greenway coming.
Or even. Is there a way that you keep this area as a buffer and turn it into like a trail through here?
Mhm. And then build on Drew
Yeah,
and inside of Iberian. So. Down to like Saragossa Court and all that stuff too, so. Yeah, all that area.
Can you change that from your general use?
I don't know, I mean, that's what we'd have to look into more with the county, I think.
Pallet plan could be,
I think
an
the
option.
pole would take a little bit of,
you think?
some
If that
homeowners
can
would
work with the county.
possibly like it, but
Right, but you think, is that?
the sections that they have that are always surrounded, and I know at one point they did have that and people would buy it. But there would be areas for trails
Yeah.
through that too, where it would change things up. I know some of the trails that's been there previous you drove out into somebody's lot that somebody owns now, but there's always an in and out for Lapoa's property, right? One road to another road. If they made somewhat of a trail, if you're looking at older groups, again, with little buggies,
Mhm.
and you give them whatever you said it was, 9,
You said there's
The-
infrastructure there.
the footprint of Lake Isabella to be able to drive
It doesn't really go back.
I mean,
buggies around,
we've always wanted to.
or bike, or walk their dog.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, you could, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone on a lot of that. I never was really for the dog park, and I have a dog, but I mean, a lot of these roads, other than the major ones.
Infrastructure.
I think it's not- it's all not-
And what it needs.
Yeah,
They could probably give us an estimate.
yeah, and it's not like
This is
screaming
X
through.
dollars to.
Queensway's a little different, but people do it all the time.
Mhm.
That
Just to
north
get
one,
plan, so we can eventually put a house on.
Your road?
That means surveying,
No.
9 yards, setting
Mhm.
yards. and-
but my mind's
and
blank.
making that
El Camino Grande?
El Camino, I mean, that people should be cooking, but people split.
Oh, they do.
When you get around, going around a.
And there's enough curves there that,
Mhm. You still see bikers and you still see walkers and stuff like that on El
but if,
Camino
I
Grande.
mean, they have enough trails or sections in between. That would
Or even trying
open
to,
up another activity, whether it's walking your dog, sightseeing, doing your old cross-country,
Mhm.
whatever them pole deals are.
Cross country skiing.
I always thought that maybe looking at all the LIPA parks and see how you can interconnect from park to park and stuff like that too, might be a good place for trails. Go through a lot of that stuff. Because obviously, I don't think we're gonna get trails along Queensway and El Camino and all that stuff like we asked in the last election. Doesn't mean it can't happen, I just don't think it's gonna happen yet. But working with the LIPA and probably trying to connect parks could give quite a few trails. And I'm not
I don't
talking
know
even
what
asphalt,
the,
I'm talking just wood chip trail and stuff like that too.
the Lapoa doesn't use, it'd just be a thought, but Lapoa doesn't really use that for anything. And so we've already, when you talk about the dog, what's that?
Where at?
Little, like even where I live, you have that,
Oh, the outlet.
you have that strip that, it's always in between houses. Cast right in there
Access. to
from the park, yep, all those, and there's little spots all over the place.
Mhm.
From, at least on the north or west side of the lake. From the end of Queensway all the way up to Drew Road, there's that type of stuff all through there. That. I don't know what the cost of that was to make a paved little strip on the side of the road for people to walk and what a dog park would cost.
I think a dog park you need to keep away from people's houses.
Mhm.
Well, it would really be a dog. Park, you'd be walking your dog, just like they walk their dogs. The ones that's gonna walk their dogs, they walk them on the road, so it wouldn't be any different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you're not gonna get any smaller than that unless you want to pay for the machine. Oh,
so where do we go from here, guys?
Great question.
I think. Possibly maybe asking the council whether we should contact this company, so we're not doing it without their approval. Maybe contact this company, they have them come on site and see if they're interested
Do a site
in
plan.
a site plan and see,
Yeah.
because they have the experience of developing property. So they can give us a better idea what that might cost, and are they interested, or if they're just flatly not interested at all.
Right, and that's where I was wondering, so if we did up a site plan and we don't have buyers for these homes yet, are we on the hook to start the cost of it and then we just recover it as we sell it to each unit? Or that's the concern that I have, the financial piece.
I think it's a marriage between the developer and us, not all us, not all.
Because the developer would be sort of spec homes like.
It's a
Yeah.
marriage of which we can recapture the cost, but basically, if you ask them to come in, it's a total different deal, if they gotta pay for the whole thing. Right?
Yeah, I think we should
Upfront,
run it
in other
past
words.
I can see us,
see where
at
we're
least
at.
for the road, it would be our responsibility.
I
They
understand.
have to be, they can be private roads, but I don't think the council has to go like that road.
Oh, yeah,
Private
no, I'm just thinking house wise though, if you have 8 houses at 200,000. What are, we obviously don't have.
Well, and you
1.6
can build
million
it
to-
for expansion. You don't have
Right.
to develop all 30 lots or whatever lots there would be, you can.
No, but it would be the agreement between the village from a planning and zoning area, what we're
Yeah.
expecting there, and then it's up to the developer to pay for it. The land, the housing, the building, the utilities.
And
We
then
would work
they
with that.
actually sell them.
Yeah, they would sell them on their own. That would be my
Okay,
idea.
okay.
There's no responsibility for the village to own anything other than.
So whatever they want, pick a location of what you were, where you want them to look at, and say, here's what we're thinking of.
Yeah.
We have, by studies, we have so many lots that we can sell.
But we have to sell for like 25 bucks. Is that what you were saying?
If we sell them, that's what we get.
Right.
Oh, I see what
If the
you're saying.
lot's worth 10,000, we only get.
You're supposed to sell it at fair market value.
Basically what we get it
I
back.
didn't know there was a limit.
So if we sell it at fair market value, which is what we're supposed to do. You know, say it's 3,000, you got a check to the county for $2,975. Keep that 25 in our bank account, boys,
Right.
That's how
Why
we got
does the
it.
county get the remainder?
because it's a delinquent tax property.
Right.
So all of these properties were acquired through delinquent taxes, and prior to the current DTR process,
That's back, way back. then.
way back before the
Yeah,
DTR
we had a
process.
bankruptcy action. At
Yep.
the time, we had a delinquent property tax
Oh,
for the county, and we had Bay City courts, judge involved, and they didn't agree with the local courts.
Mhm.
And we went back and forth for a long
For a
time.
long time.
And that's where, that's my tenure, when I was trying to get people come in to ask and said, I don't know what you're trying to buy, because if you can get with one court, agree with the other court, we can get on with life.
Mhm.
Well, no, what also hurt was when the assets finally got divided up, you had the Sherman Township assets go to one creditor, the Broomfield go to a different creditor, and you had parks in between, you had all these private roads, you had,
It was a mess.
The headache.
It was a mess. That made it tough.
Yeah.
So when's the next village council meeting? Who's going to go and represent this idea?
Madam Chair.
I don't think I'm gonna have it on the agenda for next meeting, but.
Don't ask questions like that.
I think we gotta have more plan together.
Yeah.
before we take-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think at least if nothing more, then just ask them if we have their approval.
To pursue it.
Or if there's no
I think that's
objections.
what we-
In other words, would there be an objection? If not, we're not gonna waste our time.
Right.
actually, I think before you do any of that, I need to talk to the county treasurer.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, that's the linchpin on property that we control is what is the entanglements and how that can potentially be disposed.
In
And,
other words, do they set a minimum price for the lot?
no, we've always done it in the past, but that was with Steve Pickens. Pickens is the treasurer anymore, so we need to show the deference and respect to the elected treasurer and see how she would like to proceed if we were to look at something like this.
So you're gonna talk to Kathleen, see what
reach out
she
to her.
thinks, you'll let us know, then we should ask village council if they're opposed to us engaging a developer. And then we need to see what the developer.
Once they know what kind of price it's gonna be and yada, yada, yada. So we can give that information to the developer.
Mhm.
What is the price, what are the lots? So this whole area is gonna cost X dollars. You wanna break it down per lot, fine, but this area.
Has there ever been any interest from a developer out here? As far as something like that?
No, we've never marketed either.
I don't think they know.
You know, and part of the problem is that when a developer comes in like that, they don't like to come into an area that's already platted in one sense, because typically they're not gonna have control, or they're gonna be subject to a different HOA, that type of stuff, where, you know, you can give them a 10-acre rectangle that's, you know, a field, they can do what they want with it. Or now it's like, you already got it platted and all of this stuff.
75 by 125 is
Yeah.
encouraging for huge houses.
Yeah.
You know, without buying multiple lots to do that.
That's the only good thing is if the county doesn't set a minimum price, since we're only gonna get 25.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, the lots have been sitting there for how long? So if they get $1,000.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
it's $1,000 more than they had before.
More importantly, it comes back on the roll. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
that's the selling point of, you can forego the initial recouping of, you know, that money, because you're gonna get an asset that's on the roll paying taxes at 6.61 mils to your general operating at the
Right.
county level.
Right, and you're not immediately.
Yeah, I don't know what that
upside
math
down.
is,
Yeah,
but even if
yeah.
it was a vacant lot,
Yeah,
I don't know what the length would be.
Yeah.
On $3,000, but
Right.
I wouldn't think it would be very long and it'd be worth doing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you
Right,
gotta,
I would say,
but you gotta compare that to, I've been looking at lots around the northwest side as well. And average lots, I'm seeing $10,000 to $15,000 right now for a
Yeah,
lot.
they've been sitting there
You
for a
know,
year
but
and a
yeah, and they've
half.
been sitting there for years, but they're still asking way more than 3,000. You know, for the same size lot, what's up there versus what's for private for sale, so. A developer might look at that and say, well, geez, if I can get them 3,000 apiece and everything else around them, 10, 15, 20,000 apiece. That might be the.
Where are they gonna get
Instead of,
that size of property close to this development? Lake Isabella development, where are they gonna get that size of acreage for that type of price?
right.
you're not for that, yeah, for that average, you're not, so. So
Are you
Do
talking
we have to get like Polar looped into this because of the association and stuff like that?
But there's nothing else for need to be with this stuff and all, I don't think so. I mean, they have no bite. They can complain and bark it all the time, but until they take somebody to court and do something, there's nothing else they can do.
All right, I'm gonna keep working on stuff. I think it was a good conversation. Really do.
Well, thanks for time with that. I think we don't have a definite interest if we could get it to work the right way. That's not something we do every day, so we're probably lots of conversations away.
Hang on,
Anything
got your
else?
public
Anything
comments.
else?
I just have one thing, I
Public
wanted-
comment?
just one thing, just to let you guys know, May 5th, there is a election going on here in Sherman Township. It's for the school renewal. A renewal for school 0.9888, whatever it is. For Mecosta, Isabel County school system. So if you wanna call in and get a ballot sent to you, Denise Livermore can take care of that, unless you live in Broomfield. I don't know if Broomfield's involved in that.
Yeah, school district.
It is in the same school district?
Yeah, Chip Hills.
Okay,
That's
all
where I
right,
live.
all right, so either way, so I just want to give you guys a heads up that there is an election happening May.
That's on when?
May 5th.
May 5th.
Yeah,
Is that a special?
Yep, no, I mean, state, well, you can, the schools and other places can run elections and the May election.
It's a regular election
Has
day.
done for
Okay,
years,
I didn't realize
but
that that was
99% of the
August.
time it's just schools. and-
Okay.
Is this just for renewal or increase in millage?
It's a
or-
renewal, I looked it up earlier this morning, I thought it was a 0.988, something like that. Renewal, I didn't pay that close attention to see what is renewing, you know, if it was for something specific or not. I was surprised it was less than 1 mil though. So, but I just went to, Michigan Secretary of State, website, and there's an election option in there too, you can type in your information and see the ballot. All the reading and all that stuff for it.
0.998 is only basically like that.
Yeah, which is way low for the schools, are usually a lot higher. than that,
Yeah.
so.
It's probably like a debt
One-
village.
I didn't pay that close attention.
That's
As long
probably
as you don't see one. Yeah.
That's not normal for school.
Yeah.
You know, you
No,
got.
that's
a lot
one.
higher, but
You
that's
got
all I
one, We'll go.
How much is the
Okay.
car?